Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. I'm joined today with my co-host Joe Baya. Who's bringing us a show this week, Joe?
This week's sponsor is the Flora Bama Fishing Rodeo. Joining us today, we got Jennifer Parnell. Jennifer's the Marketing and Public Relations Director over at the Flora Bama. Jennifer, welcome to the show. First off, I want to thank you. People reach out to us every week telling us how much they appreciate what they're learning from this show and just really all the knowledge that's coming out of our professional guides that we have on here. And the Flora Bama is a really big part of what makes that possible. So I want to thank you guys for your support of the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having us on it and for helping us share the knowledge that we have about our fishing radio to make sure people know when it is and everything that's going on with it.
Well, great. How are you guys all ready? It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
We are ready. We're so excited. It's one of the many events we do at Flora Bama, but it's one of our favorites. It took off really quickly from the beginning, and the community's been really supportive of it, so we're excited.
We talked with Angelo DiPaola a little bit about it a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things I was noticing, this year's tournament's May 31st through June 2nd, and we've got June 1st is the opening of snapper season. How does that affect the snapper category?
Well, we're happy that at least we do have the category. We still are able to have it in our tournament, so it's a positive thing that you can still fish for snapper and win prizes and be a part of the competitive division. But on May 31st, the fishing is open for the tournament, so you just won't be able to fish for snapper on that day. But hopefully people will be able to fish 2 days, and then they can fish on June 1st and come weigh in your fish and be able to compete for all the different categories for red snapper.
Well, that's all right. Some of these guys need to get to work a little more often, so they need to be working on Friday anyway. What else is going on in this year's tournament? Tell us a little bit about it, what to expect.
Yeah, so it's a really fun weekend at Flora Bama. We'll be set up with our weigh-in underneath Old River Grill, which is across the street from the main Flora Bama. We'll have a huge sponsor area in between Old River Grill and the Flora Bama Yacht Club. So we'll have all different kids' activities there and stuff for adults as well, and different sponsors with things set up for people to look and shop through and all that fun stuff. There'll be live music all weekend, so you can come, watch people weigh in, hang out, get some food, some drinks, listen to that live music, watch people coming in on their boats. It's a really great tournament because we call it the funnest fishing tournament on the Gulf Coast for all the reasons I just mentioned before. But we want it to be a tournament for every person, so we kind of say it's an every man's tournament. It's low entry fee, only $25 for a kid, only $50 for adults. And the prizes are awesome. I mean, we give away kayaks and money and coolers and all kinds of stuff. So for such a low entry fee, it's really, really awesome, all the stuff that you can get. And then we have all the different categories. So, you can do anything from a blue crab up to, a swordfish, and everything in between. So it really makes it fun for everybody. You can fish off your dock, or you can go out in a big boat and fish offshore. I mean, you can fish off from the beach if you wanted to. So it's really fun for everybody, and we just want people to come out and celebrate with each other and enjoy their weekend.
Well, I know I'm looking forward to it. Butch, you looking forward to this thing, man?
I am. I'm looking forward to getting over there and seeing what it's all about. I always like to kick back with a cocktail and watch some boats weigh in some fish for sure.
I think Butch is
it's a fun time, right?
Bushwhackers.
Yeah, right.
Well, Jennifer, thanks again for the support here on the podcast. We really appreciate you guys. Tell us if folks want to pick up tickets. I know they're for sale online right now. How can they do it?
You can go to FlorabamaFishingRodeo.com, and the tickets are on sale right there. And then a lot of people have questions about rules and all the categories, and all that information is on there as well.
Awesome.
All right, Jennifer. Well, thanks again, folks. Y'all come on out to the Flora Bama Fishing Rodeo this year. Butch and I will be there. Y'all come check it out and have some fun. Thanks, Jennifer. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you so much.
All right, Butch. I'm gonna be trying to win that thing. I'm going after some of the surffish species while we're over there and at the Flora Bama Fishing Rodeo. I am. I don't know what you're doing. Maybe you're going to babysit my son while I go out and fish. That'd be good. But what I really want to do is I want to beat Matthew Isbell. I just got a feeling that head to head, I can take him down.
Bring it on, man.
I've seen you fish. I'll put money on that.
Well, Matthew, welcome back to the show, man. Give us that onshore report. What's been happening on the Pompano front?
Yeah, it's so interesting seeing the evolution of the surf throughout the year. And I was telling one of my clients today, like it's so strange because like you haven't seen a ladyfish or a blue runner in I don't even know how long. I can't remember the last time I saw one. And then all of a sudden boom, they're here. You know, and that's the same way it was with pompano. I mean, we still kind of sporadically will catch pompano all throughout the year, but you know, like you're not really catching them consistently, and then boom, one day you show up and you're just hammering pompano, and then you know you get on that good bite. So summer is here. We have started seeing all the ladyfish and blue runners, and a lot of stingrays right now, cow nose rays. I mean, we're getting a lot of random stuff too. I mean, I can't even think of it off the top of my head, but I mean, you'll get croakers and sweet trout and, you know, just you name it, like you got a shot at randomly remoras, you know, like they're all moving in the surf, which that is very typical for your summer pattern.
Isabel, I want to ask you, you know, last year you did a video on eating a hardhead catfish. I commend you for that. I am generally a person who we discount a lot of fish that are really good. I've eaten a lot of fish that people don't eat typically. Butch, you ate some pinfish with me about a month ago, and it was probably the best fish we had that night. But regardless of that, I want to know anything new planned for the menu this year. You gonna cook up a ladyfish or something? I
don't know. You know, it's YouTube's one of those things you kind of have to be original, and all those things have really been done on YouTube. So I don't know if I'll venture out in that, but I have a lot of people that, of course, ask because they want to see me do it, and whatever. But we might have to break out some random ladyfish recipe or something. But
what about the really bonnet heads? I've noticed you guys catching some bonnet heads
too.
Yeah. We were catching those pretty consistently a couple of weeks ago. They kind of died down now, but yeah, I love bonnet heads and sharp nose sharks. Both of those species are very common surf fishing, and because they're a smaller species shark, they will eat shrimp. So, you know, if you're fishing with shrimp or fish bites, they will hit it. And we catch those pretty consistently when we're targeting other species like your pompano and your whiting. And anytime we get them, you know, the limits, there's no size limit because they are a smaller species shark. So you can keep any size, but you can only keep one per person. But when we get them, we throw them in the cooler. They're delicious.
Anything special to do with them when you catch them? You know, like bleed them or anything like that?
Yeah, we do go ahead and bleed them immediately. And if we're going to be fishing a lot longer, I will go ahead and actually gut them on the beach. Like if we're going to be out there, you know, a few more hours. But if it's depending on when it is, like if it's close to the end of our trip or something, I may just bleed it and, you know, take it to the house and go ahead and gut it. But yeah, you want to bleed and gut it quickly. You know, sharks, other than makos, they all they all pee through their skin. So when they die, that kind of happens. That's why you get that real ammonia smell, which it's really, honestly, I mean, as disgusting as it sounds, it's not the end of the world if you don't get a chance to do that. I mean, you still want to make sure you ice your fish properly, whatever it is. With sharks, as long as you can soak them in milk or salt water after the fact, whether you bleed them, gut them or not, you can do that, and it's going to help remove any of that ammonia, fishy smell and taste. It'll help a lot.
Well, enough of Isabel's recipe hour. Tell me a little bit about that dirty bite. I mean, you mentioned that there's just a lot of different things moving into the surf. Is there anything we can do right now to clean that up a little bit and maybe minimize the amount of undesirables that we're hooking?
There's a couple of things you can do. Number one, you can try to figure out, like I talk a lot about, and we've talked a lot about it on this podcast, is finding what zone fish are running in. Well, you can do that a lot of times in the antithesis of avoiding species and realizing what zone they're running in. So it works in the opposite direction too. So if you're catching a particular species of fish, you may want to move that around, you know, try to get away from that species of fish. Or just the same way we experiment with baits, trying to figure out what fish are eating. When you figure out what the fish are eating that you don't want to catch, you might want to think about changing up your baits to keep them off of it. For instance, this past week, we were in Orange Beach one day. We were catching a lot of blue runners. No ladyfish that day, but blue runners were very prominent. We were able to fortunately get some sand fleas, and they were staying off of the sand fleas. But if you put a fish bite or a piece of shrimp, fresh dead shrimp out there, they were all over it. So that slowed them down, and we actually were successful in catching a couple of pompano because we were able to allow those baits to sit longer. Right. Now, ladyfish, if they're around, they're going to hammer sand fleas. They love sand fleas. But, you know, you might can do just fish bites. They'll still hit it, but it may slow them down a little bit. Same with your catfish. That may slow them down. So just trying to figure out, you know, what zone they may not be in, and also figuring out a bait that's going to slow them down a little bit.
Matthew, let me back you up a little bit. You were talking about the different zones. We've talked about this at length. When we were focused on catching pompano, we were trying to move our baits to find the fish. Now you're finding fish just about everywhere you're putting baits. Are you seeing that the pompano you're catching, are they running, are you getting a ladyfish on one strike and then the next strike is a pompano? Or when you find pompano that they're kind of off by themselves away from those other fish?
It's a mix, especially with ladyfish. Like ladyfish tend to just get everywhere. But so it's hard to avoid those. Like you'll see a school, right. It's just like a freaking football field of ladyfish. But like the blue runners, they tend to act, from what I can tell, obviously I wish I could be underwater and see what these fish do, but they tend to act a lot like pompano. And, they run in schools, they're kind of cruising up and down the beach. They tend to be at a particular depth where we will catch them in one depth, but we won't be catching them at another depth. So you can kind of avoid those. And sometimes the catfish will be like that. They'll be at a particular depth, but not at others. Other times if the water's dirty, good luck. They're everywhere. But, it just depends on the species. It's hard to say yes or no, but if you're noticing one species over the other that you're having a difficult time with, if it's all of them, you're going to be in for a rough day. I mean, like that's just tough to try to, come up with the magic formula of avoiding all of them and getting just pompano. But, if you're only dealing with predominantly one species, usually we can figure out a way to overcome that, whether that's switching baits or putting baits in a different place.
Good stuff, Matthew. As you know, we like to get that onshore tip from you every week. This week's onshore tip is brought to us by KillerDock. As anglers, we put a lot of time, money, and passion into fishing, but most of us don't have a fish cleaning station that we are proud of. Many of us are suffering from dock dysfunction. It's not a good thing, Joe.
It's really not, Butch.
Rotten table, rusty metal, this is just no good. The good news is the dock enhancement that we've all been waiting for is finally here. KillerDock uses marine-grade aluminum to make fabulous fish cleaning tables and stunning canopies that will keep us out of the sun. KillerDock combines durability, function, and design to uniquely upgrade your entire dock experience. Visit KillerDock.com to see more.
Butch, did you see, I hated to see the damage that was caused down on Dolphin Island this past weekend by the storms / maybe there were tornadoes. I don't know if it was finally ever said.
Whatever happened was not good.
But did you see that picture of that one dock and it was just all torn up and everything, and then the KillerDock was sitting right there next to it? And
I did.
Nothing happened to it.
Yep, I did, man. And like you said, that's some bad stuff, but that was a cool picture to see the KillerDock still standing there.
That was. All right, Matthew, what you got for a tip this week, man?
Since we've had finally the sand fleas show up in colonies now, they're always kind of around, but now you can actually spot colonies, which I wish there was a really good way for me to tell you how to spot colonies, but literally sitting on the beach with clients pointing at a colony, it's even still hard to tell people how to find them and see them. So trying to explain that over the phone will be even that much more difficult. But if you are at least able to see where colonies of sand fleas are, if you at least have that under your belt, the proper way to actually capitalize on that and rake them and rake dozens of them at in one rake is you want to make sure that you stay high. Like you want, when you spot that colony and you walk over to it, you've got to walk basically as far away on the beach from them as you can until you get squared up with them. So they're down in the wet sand. You want to stay as high in the dry sand as you can until you get up in front of them, and then you want to be patient, because they're not going to necessarily come up after every wave. That they'll come up after one, and then they may kind of stay deep for a minute. So you want to make sure you're patient and you really have a good idea of where those sand fleas are. And then, when you actually run down and get them, you'll know where they are and rake them. I just see a lot of people right now, they're just milling around in that, when they're trying to rake for sand fleas, they're just looking for them and they're walking around in the wet sand, right there by the water, or they're just kind of blind raking and they're just wasting time. You might pick up one or two, but if you do it that way, if you can spot the colonies, and when you go to actually rake them, if you're a little strategic about it, you can definitely be more successful and not waste a lot of time.
Matthew, do you find that there's a better time of day where the colonies are coming up, easier to get to them?
I've never done this, but a lot of people talk about going at night. I don't really see the point in that, because I think if you know what you're looking for, they're always there. I've seen them in the mornings, midday, evenings, So I hear a lot of people talking about going and using like a black light or a flashlight or something at night. And that may be effective to get more of them. I wouldn't know, but if you have a keen eye and you can kind of see what you're looking for those sand flea colonies, I mean, as long as you're patient and you look up and down the beach, you'll spot them. I mean, they're here now. I mean, they've been in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Fort Morgan. Like, I've seen them everywhere. So I mean, and that's another sign of something. I mean, like the same time we started seeing the ladyfish, sand fleas were here. So it coincides.
Have you experimented? Y'all have talked a lot about putting a little tip of fish bite on the other side of a shrimp, making sure it kind of helps hold that shrimp on. Do you find that's necessary or even helpful with the sand fleas? Have you tried that at all?
Oh yeah, we definitely. Most of the time, I will still put a fish bite on there with the sand flea, like the sand flea flavored fish bite, because it's orange too. So I mean, it helps stay on there. Yeah, it helps catch their attention. So, it just depends on the rig. I mean, sometimes if I'm using sand fleas or any natural bait, whether it be ghost shrimp or sand fleas or whatever, I may not use any floats just because that natural color is already there on the bait. And then I may tip it with a fish bite just to give it that extra pop that would come from a float or a bead or whatever. And so I may remove that stuff because I feel like you can get a little crazy with it. But if you've got that natural bait on there, maybe just something to help it hold it on the hook and just give it a little extra color with the fish bite. So most definitely, we do that very regularly.
Well, Matthew, thanks for the report this week, man. That was a lot of information. Is anything new on the YouTube channel that folks should check out?
I posted videos every week. I posted one yesterday talking about some rods and how to save some money. And some tackle stores may not like me about that kind of stuff, but I'm really trying to help the consumer. I really have the consumer's best interest in mind. So, because I have no loyalties, so I can talk about whatever I want. So
that's right.
It's helpful.
well, I can vouch for a lot of other guys and just tell you that not all fishermen are interested in saving money, because
that's right.
It's very evident whenever you're out on the water. So
yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it too much. I don't think the tackle shops will have any problem with you doing that.
This is true. Yes. Us surf fishermen, us land dwellers, usually we are the budget conscious. So
that's right.
We're the ones that are always looking for a deal. So that I try to help out where I can in that field.
All right, Matthew. Well, thanks, man. We'll check back in with you soon. Good luck out there.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, Joe, that was some great knowledge, as always, from the Bama Beach Bum. Let's head on down to, well, I don't know where he's at. How we doing today, Captain Bobby? What you been doing?
I'm south. I'm south, Butchie. I'm south.
I never know where you're going to be. It's hard to introduce you these days.
There's either a seagull in the background or you're strangling a cat, one or the other.
Yeah, that's right. Seagulls aren't a bad thing sometimes, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes They can give the fish away. Sometimes they hang around when you're cleaning fish, and that's what I got going on right now. So anyway.
Well, that's always a good day.
You know what? They don't ever make up the deal, dude. You know what I'm saying? You clean fish. And I'm going like, all right, guys, here's a few scraps right here. Show me where some trout are, man. Show me where some shrimp are coming out of the water. You know what I'm saying? That's what this is all about. It's got to be a two-way street.
Well, the interesting thing about seagulls is they literally can hide behind atoms. Like, I'm convinced of it, because you can be 30 miles offshore and nothing's in sight, and you start throwing some shrimp up in the air or some bait up in the air, and all of a sudden here comes a seagull out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yep, that's exactly right, man. I'm telling you what, if only we had that good of eyesight,
Yeah. Well, you mentioned cleaning some fish. What's on the dock?
Well, I'll tell you, we've been, the fish has been, I'd love to say it's been great until you go to the next day, then it gets okay, then the next day is great. So, I don't know, man. I'm not going to say it's not fantastic, because we really have a fantastic fishery. We're in our peak, one of our, heading towards peak periods right now. Numbers have been no problems at all for me. I mean, there's no problem at all catching numbers of fish. I just finished my third trip today, maybe my fourth trip today, where we actually used bait. And, it's kind of weird, man. I brought some bait one day because the guy really wanted to bring it, and we just smoked the fish versus the artificial bait. It was really noticeable. And then the very next day, you turn right around, and the artificials are tit for tat. The next day, it's phenomenal on live, and today it was about tit for tat. So and every day has been really a good day. We had some really nice size fish over the last couple of days. We didn't get really big fish today, but we caught a lot of numbers. Today we had a lot of fun because we got to throw. I've been throwing a lot of popping corks with with the live bait I mentioned, live shrimp underneath them, and then voodoos, of course, under the popping corks for the artificial bait. But today you got to do something a little bit different. We got to throw a little bit of subsurface bait, slicks, of course, and some top waters and stuff. And that was kind of fun. We caught fish on those this morning, and that's definitely a go-to deal if you really kind of want to specialize in, trying to just target some bigger fish. But as it turned out, really the fish we caught yesterday under the popping corks, so I had some really monster-sized fish yesterday on popping corks and live shrimp. And I've said, a number of, sometimes when I do seminars, especially, when we start talking about springtime fishing, people think about shrimp or shrimp imitations as small fish baits. But this time of year, man, you can really catch some big fish using that type of bait, so you're not totally giving up on big fish when you go to a shrimp or a shrimp imitation under a popping cork. And we just, that was evidence yesterday. We had some really big fish on those popping corks, and shrimp. But and then Saturday, I think it was, when we had that squall come through, the weather coming through, I got a chance to take one of the few wade trips I've had to do this, be able to do this year. And it was a record book trip too, throwing the slick lure and some top water. Top waters did okay, but the slick lure really, really did good. The fish were like right up against the beach, right where the waves were breaking on the up onto the beach. Really, of course, when you're catching that, throwing those type of lures, you really catch good quality fish, So, all in all, it's been just fantastic over the last couple of weeks. Kind of getting to where May is could be. I wish we were being a little bit more consistent, as far as like the quality, the quantity. Again, quantity is not a problem. It's just the quality of the fish kind of varies from day to day, doing the same thing. And that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out right now as to what's going on with that. So, again, all in all, been really good fishing. So I had just some really good trips.
Bobby, this is kind of an elementary question, but I think it's worth asking. I've always been a treble hook under a popping cork guy. Doing a little fishing in Florida, you can't legally use
You can't use trebles. That's right. Yes, sir. That's right.
What are you using these days?
Well, I use a number 8 black pearl. It's a black chrome treble hook, a black pearl I call it, but black chrome treble hook that Eagle Claw makes. It's a little short shank. Number 8 is what I use most of the time, and the only time I go to the 10 is which is the smaller hook. The hook gets smaller as the number gets bigger. Right now I'm using, most of the time I use 8s when I'm using live shrimp and trebles. Like you said, you can't, in some state, if you're listening to this, and you need to check your laws if you're from a different state than Alabama. But in Alabama, we can use trebles with natural bait. And so that's what I use for it. And I like the little wide gap treble with the short shank that Eagle Claw makes. And I like it because it hides real well. And it's extremely sharp. And they tend to rust out if you happen to break a fish off and leave a hook in them or something. They tend to rust out. So eventually they'll rust out versus a stainless hook that'll stay with the fish. So that's what I like to use, mainly because the biggest thing to me is because it's so sharp. When the fish gets near that, or a person gets near that, one of the two of us is going to get hooked, So,
well, back to what you were saying about them rusting out. You catch a lot of trout that you end up releasing. And now that we're going to some of these newer limits, there's going to be a lot of that's going to start to happen. A lot of these bigger fish being caught need to be released, legally will need to be released. What do you do when you've got a treble hook and that's hooked anywhere other than right in the lip, right in the jaw? Do you go ahead and cut that treble hook out and just, hope that it rusts out, and or do you kind of play it by ear based on what you're seeing and try to, do the old push and twist and get them out?
Well, fortunately, believe it or not, and I'm sure we're going to run out of time for to get into this, but we do need to talk about this at some time when we talk about trebles and using trebles. But fortunately, I very, 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 very rarely get a fish that's gut hooked with a treble hook under a popping cork, because you always have your hand on the rod. And when the cork goes down, you're setting the hook, and the fish is going to get hooked in the roof of the mouth, the lip, The worst thing that happens, sometimes they'll catch it down towards their tongue or down towards their gills. And so what I do usually when I start to get close to what I'm going to let people keep, if they're going to keep, some people may only want 2 or 3. I don't allow any more than 5 per person. But usually I'll say, guys, let's leave about 3 or 4 slots open, because eventually one of them might get hooked down where the gill kind of meets the bottom of their tongue. Mm-hmm. And you start getting that red, thick blood, that fish is going to die. The hook's easy to get out, but he's going to die. So I'll leave the slots open, and I throw those fish in the box. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you think about it, think about fishing with a cork. Your hand's always on the rod. So when the cork goes down, you're sticking the fish, and he's not having a chance to really get that hook way down in his stomach. In the event that he does, and it's very rare when they do, I do what you just said, Joe. I just cut the line and let the fish. I figure the fish got a better chance swimming around with that hook than he does me trying to dig it out, and he's got way better chance of living than he does if I throw him in the ice chest. I mean, I know marine biologists, but that's just kind of what I figure is it's 100% mortality rate if you throw him in an ice chest. So
that's a fact. No arguing that.
So I had never done any studies on it, but that's kind of what I'm figuring. You know?
Maybe you can get a grant. We'll let
that's
you.
That's exactly right. Get a grant on it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I heard a joke the other day, and I hope I don't make any of our Louisiana friends mad, but I heard a joke the other day about the Louisiana catch and releases. They just fillet one side and let it go.
Earmuffs, Louisiana.
And I told that, and I was told that by a Cajun friend. So
it's okay then. You got permission, basically.
Yeah.
Well, as far as the springtime goes, which we're in that pattern, you know, you're talking about popping corks a lot, but what kind of bottom are we looking at right now that these fish are holding up on? Or we need to look for shell, or is it more looking for cuts? And you mentioned some of the wade fishing. What kind of patterns can folks look for?
Shell is the big thing. If you can find these fish, this period that we're in right now, we're in there in a peak spawn. Shell is a big deal. If you can find good hard bottom, that's what they actually seek that out to spawn over, because their eggs stick to it when they let it. It's a real productive way for them to reproduce. But any kind of hard bottom, as we move more into the summer, you're going to be fishing structure and things like that, rigs and wrecks and rock piles and that sort of thing. But right now, man, any kind of hard bottom, whether it's natural or man-made, it doesn't really matter. The fish will hold over that, and they gather up in schools, and that's what you're kind of going to be looking for. And it's not hard to find. There's a lot of it around. Grass works the same way. If you can find, we got some grass in some of our areas, and works the same way for them. You know, so that's the kind of bottom I look for this time of year. I love it when I put my power poles down and they start going dragging on that shell. I'm going, like, I'm in the right spot, you know.
So we're looking, the fish are orienting to shell, they're orienting to grass, because we're in that pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn period, depending on which day you catch it. But once I'm there, once I'm in that, I'm on that flat. Okay, if I'm looking at a featureless beach, or it looks featureless to me, are you looking for birds? Are you looking for slicks? Are you looking for glass minnows? You know, at the top of the water. What's telling you to start?
All of the above. Unfortunately, you don't see a lot of bird activity this time of year, because there's not a lot of shrimp around. But, you know, all of the things, slicks are the big thing for me. I really, because it's so visual, it's so easy to see a trout slick, you know what I'm saying? And that's kind of really what I look for, and that's what I key on. Even though if I go to an area, you know, where I kind of want to start, or kind of thinking about starting, you know, I always start looking for the slicks at first. But even if they're not there, and I know that what the bottom is like, and I know what most of our bottom around here is like, I'll go ahead and start my drift. But sometimes you can adjust the boat a little bit, or adjust the drift. You start to see slicks start popping up, you know, and get lined up with them, and that'll do it, you know. So to me, the big thing is slicks. And you mentioned glass minnows too. There's a lot of glass minnows. There's not a lot of shrimp, particularly down at the lower of the bend. There's not a lot of shrimp right now, so you're not going to see that bird activity. But the glass minnows is what they're really on. So it's, you know, we're catching a lot of fish when you're popping that cork and you see glass minnows shower, because that's a lot of what they're eating right now is the glass minnows. You know, so I love seeing that when we're popping that cork, and glass minnows are showering every time you pop it, you know.
That's something you want to see for sure.
Yep.
Well, Bobby, we always get that inshore tip from you. What are you thinking this week?
Well, we were talking about popping cork fishing and fishing over, over a shell or grass or whatever type of bottom you're fishing over. And a couple things happened here in the last couple of days. Well, actually, the same thing happened over the last couple of days is, even though you got a real shallow, real narrow water column like that, like fishing a 3 or 4 foot water column, I had a couple times where, whether I'd cut, like retied a hook or something like that, where I had a guy grab a rod that was a little bit shallower than the others. When I say a little bit, I'm talking about between 6 inches and a foot shallower than the others. And it's amazing how much fewer times he was getting bit than the other guys. So the tip is, pay attention to those kind of things, and don't be afraid to adjust your depth if you're fishing by yourself or with just a buddy. Pay attention to that because, a foot in 3 feet of water is an awful lot of water. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you can get the situation where just making like a minor adjustment, even in shallow water, will start help you get bit a little bit more. So kind of just pay attention to what's going. Sometimes it doesn't make any difference. Sometimes they're up on the surface hitting your cork and everything. That when you're in that kind of bite, it ain't going to matter what you do. But if you get in a situation to where one guy's getting bit more than others, then you take a look at what's going on with the depth, and you'd be surprised sometimes how much difference that little bit of an adjustment will make.
That's a great tip, man. I've definitely been guilty of that myself. When you are tying on,
we all have, to where you just go like, oh, there's nothing here, and there's nothing here, and we don't, whatever, and then all of a sudden somebody throws out on the other side of the boat a little bit deeper cork or a little bit shallower cork and gets bit, so we're all, it's not just you, it's everybody.
Well, I mean, the days that really come to my mind are, it seems like most of the time when I'm fishing with Butch, he's complaining because I'm just catching way more fish than he is, and
that's what he always tells me.
He just thinks it's the tackle, and maybe he's right, so I don't know. Well, Bobby, thanks, man. Thanks for the good report this week. Good luck out there, bud. We'll check in with you again soon.
Okay, guys. Y'all, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Cam, Bobby. Keep whacking them.
All right, Butch, let's wrap this thing up with an offshore report. Let's take it on down to Dolphin Island. Leaving out of the Dolphin Island Marina, we got Skipper Theory on the line. Skipper, how's it going out there, man?
All right, guys. Got really nice out today after a couple of choppy days earlier in the week. It was really nice out today. Not too hot. Nice little easterly breeze. Or enjoy it while we can.
I bet today was nice. Not many leaves moving here in Theodore, Alabama. I bet it was slick.
No, it was. Nice little light east current. Water's clearing up a little bit every day.
You guys just been bottom fishing?
Just bottom fishing this week. Dad got in from offshore yesterday. They had a nice trip. A few tunas, some nice dolphins showing up. They had a blue marlin on. Just lots of bait. It's finally getting to be summertime the last couple of weeks. I think we talked about that a little bit last week, Some bait showing up. Lots of bait showed up this week.
I'm going to make a prediction.
That's scary.
Let's have it.
I really feel like it's going to be one of those dolphin summers. You know what I mean? Where you just lots of mahi out there.
Yeah, there is a lot of sargassum starting out just, 20 miles. And I don't know where it stops, really. There's a lot of it.
Scattered mess, I'm sure, unless something pushes it up, huh?
Man, there's little lines. There's giant patches. There's just miles of it, really.
That is good and bad, I think.
Yeah.
And you may have I kind of missed what you said a little bit, Skipper, but is some of that grass, kind of a little more near shore as well? You seen it, on your day trips as well?
Yeah, it probably starts. This week it's been out 25, 30 miles. Today there was a couple of lines of it, actually, since it calmed down,
Mm-hmm.
And looked around them a little bit today, didn't see anything. But
I could remember years where you couldn't even, I know, remember me and you worked on the back deck, there was some years where you couldn't even put out a trolling lure for months. It was pretty much impossible and miserable to troll. And then some summers you just don't see it. Isn't that weird? I guess maybe the current from the Sea of Sargasso is different or something. It doesn't get pushed over here. It's funny how that works out.
Right.
What about blue water? How far is that stuff?
I believe, man, I'd hate to lie to you. I believe it's pretty around all of the offshore rigs, starting around 55 miles or so.
Pretty decent. Pretty decent. 20 or 30 miles?
Yeah, it's a good clean green. A few mackerel around. We've caught a couple of mackerel this week, but not a lot yet.
Catching them on drift lines or fast trollers?
These have just been on fast trollers this week, but just getting in the summertime pattern, hopefully, man. No doubt.
Yeah,
Skipper,
for sure.
We talked with Angelo DiPaola a couple weeks ago at length about fast trollers. And do you have a favorite speed that you enjoy? You feel like you pick up more bites?
I think we get more bites at 12 or 13 knots than we do when we're up there at 16, 17, like we cruise sometimes. But, I mean, I have caught them a good many fish at 16, 17 knots. But I think you get a few more down there, 11 or 12, somewhere in that range.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of factors that go along with that, too. You know, you're just covering more ground when you're going 18 or 19 knots, obviously. So you're just probably seeing more fish,
Sure,
too.
sure.
Triggerfish is closed, right? Closed Friday.
Yeah. Oh, man, we threw back some nice triggerfish today. A few jacks on some spots were really pretty. That'll open the 1st of August.
How deep are you seeing those jacks?
They were about 130 feet today, but we've been seeing a few everywhere, really. You know, without targeting them, it's hard to say, but
for sure,
catching a few along.
Good deal. Everybody's getting fired up for snapper season, June 1, couple weeks, huh?
Man, it'll be nice to put a few of those in the box.
Color?
Obviously caught some nice ones today and had to throw them back. Yeah, it'll be great to get a little revenge there. And just makes our life so much easier when that's open.
Well, speaking of snapper season, it's coming up. There's going to be a lot of boats on the water, a lot of boats. And it's a good time for folks to be a little frustrated. But you also got to be thinking safety when you got that many people on the water. And Skipper, you got a good tip this week. I really like your tip. A lot of people don't realize what you're going to tell us. This week's offshore tip is brought to you by the Alabama Gulf Coast Slam Fishing Tournament. It's going on now through May 18th. There's daily weigh-ins from 11 to 6 at Zeke's Marina in Orange Beach and Fort Morgan Marina at Fort Morgan. No registration is required for anglers fishing aboard a registered chartered vessel. Registration is required for pier, bridge, surf, and jetty fishing. For more info, visit AlabamaGulfCoastSlam.com. All right, Fire Marshal Skipper, give us a safety tip of the week, man.
I would say one of the biggest hazards we have, you know, like navigating in and out of, say, Billy Goat Hole, or I'm sure it's the same situation at Orange Beach Pass, Destin Pass, whichever crowded pass you're coming in and out of, is there's bigger boats and smaller boats. And like at Dolphin Island, you got the ferries, you got the 2 giant crew boats, and there's a few bigger charter boats like this one too. I think a lot of people just don't realize that, like the Escape at a dead idle, my boat, or one of those big crew boats, at a dead idle is around 6 knots. That's as slow as I can go. You know, and a lot of times somebody will pull out in front of you or pull in front of you, and they're idling in, say, a single outboard or a dual outboard. And I'm just fighting to maintain steerage, taking my motors out of the gear. And they probably think that I'm being a jerk or something, you know, riding up on them. But it is really a struggle in a narrow channel with these larger boats that idle fast. So, I mean, just be aware of that. Maybe pull in behind a larger boat instead of, you know, running in front of them more. And because, you know, a boat like this or one of those big crew boats, 80 or 100 tons, that's a heck of a lot of momentum. Even if I take it out of gear immediately, you know, it's going to take me 100 yards to stop, you know?
Sure. Well, and not even creep, you know, pull it out in front of somebody. Just make sure you're aware of your surroundings. But also, somebody pulls out in front of you, and you don't have any room. Usually, you don't have that much room to correct because the channel is the channel.
Right.
You know, the ditch is finicky in
Can't
itself.
go around them. Right.
That's exactly right.
Shallow spots and you know, some, especially, you know, right at the turn there at the ditch. I mean, you have to go in one particular place. So
in a lot of the places, right. Very restricted in your ability to maneuver, for sure. I think that's a great tip.
That is a great tip. And it's not just that. It's, you know, out in the ship channel as well. I see it a lot with guys triple tail fishing. I seen it with guys that are pulling shrimp nets. They'll start sorting their shrimp in the middle of the ship channel. Or, you know, or they're triple tail fishing and they're fishing a buoy or something or a piling, and they've got their boat hanging out there. Well, one of those tankers that's coming through there, they can't stop. You know, I mean, it's so it is, and you just don't realize how much faster those big boats can go at idle and they're not throwing a wake. You know, so you just don't really realize it if you've never been on one. So. Good tip, man. I like that. Well, Skipper, if folks want to get in touch with you and book I know you'll got some walk-on trips that are going to be coming up for snapper season. What's the best way for them to reach out and book a trip? When are y'all running those walk-on trips?
We are doing walk-on trips on definitely on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesdays. in June and July.
That's
I think
always
Sunday trip will be from 8 to 2, and then there'll be a double trip, like a 6 to noon and a 1 to 7 on Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
And you definitely need to make a reservation with that as well. A lot of times it's full in the summer, but you need to call Miss Ann at 251-861-5302
Awesome.
because she keeps it all straight.
That's right.
She is definitely the boss.
Keeps all y'all straight. I know that.
Right.
All of it. Yep.
All right, buddy.
Good deal,
thanks
man.
for the
Glad you get some
report.
calmer weather.
Yeah, we'll be checking back in with you throughout snapper season. Looking forward to hearing how it starts out and goes down. Be safe out there, bud.
All right, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, man. That's things are heating up. I know it's been pretty rough. Couldn't get the best offshore report, but it's a pretty good one. Know where all that sargassum weed is, and it just is what it is right now. It's about the OBBCs this weekend, so hopefully we can get some good reports from that.
Prediction number 2 for the podcast. I do believe you're going to see a bluefin caught in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would say.
Man, I feel like we forgot something this week.
Hey, Cap.
Hey, Cap question. That's right. What we got this week for that, bud?
We didn't forget. We were saving the best for last. Man, this week we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary. We got a really cool question from Joe from Illinois. He emailed us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Joe had some questions about boat maintenance, boat care. And I thought the guys over at L&M Marine would be the best to answer this question. So today we've got John Page with us. John, welcome to the show. We've got a question for you today from Joe from Illinois. He says, "Hey, Cap, just found your show today. Great stuff. Keep up the good work. I stayed at Dolphin Island a couple years ago and was lucky to rent a house on a canal from an owner who also rented me his boat for the week. It made our trip. This year, we're renting a house on the bay side with the dock, but he was not able to secure a boat rental. He says, I do have a 17-foot aluminum bass boat with a 40-horse Yamaha, and I'm considering bringing it down. What would be your opinion of leaving the boat docked in the water for a week? Do you think there would be any significant damage to any of the components, such as the trolling motor, from being in salt water? Or am I overthinking it?" John, what do you think, man? Y'all see a lot of problems over there at L&M in the service department, and I imagine y'all have learned a lot. What do you think about Joe's issue?
Well, first of all, guys, what's up? I've been a long time listener. Really excited to join y'all today, and pretty cool. Podcast, man, I love it. But I think the biggest things and concerns that we get this question probably daily. Leaving the boat in the water kind of brings up concerns. I think those same concerns I would have for glass boats as far as like barnacle growth and things like that. But more specifically with the aluminum, being a long time aluminum boat dealer, I think really it kind of starts out with the electrical systems such as your trolling motor and electronics, and some of those things can be like, for example, foot controlled trolling motors. With the foot pedals are kind of exposed. If you flip them over, you kind of see a lot of those components aren't necessarily like waterproof. But more specifically about the boat itself, a lot of the boats that we sell nowadays, all of them are, 50-52 alloy, which is a marine alloy aluminum material. So saltwater, you're fine. It's just the biggest thing. I think what people, our customers included, have to be aware of is that there's only a few of those aluminum bay boats and aluminum even bass boats. Most of those boats aren't self-tailors like these glass boats are. So if you're going to leave it tied up, you really need to have, a good bilge pump in it, and maybe even, some kind of way to have a backup power source or something like that. That way, if your automatic bilge comes on, you need to have it charging. But, the biggest really issue that we run into, kind of circling back to that electrical side of things, is where people start, maybe installing their own kind of LED lights up front. They might be running some electrical wire throughout the boat. And, you got to think about it with aluminum. If you drill any hole or you're trying to run that wire through any of those cap rails, you can strip that insulation back. And of course, if you do that on a glass boat, you might never know, as long as obviously hot and ground aren't touching. But, you could cause some electrolysis, and that could be your issue. But, if you've got one of these modern day aluminum boats, they are more than able to handle the saltwater environment as long as you kind of, really take care of them, our service department deals with it daily, using really good, butt connectors, heat shrink butt connectors, tinned wire, and then, making sure, when we do add all these accessories that everybody's putting on these boats. I mean, I know y'all have been on boats with iPilots, and we, certainly I almost feel, like I forgot something if I don't have an iPilot in front of my boat when we go fishing now. It's just such a, really a blessing, how easy that really makes the whole experience, the accessories has gone wild, so people are adding, multiple units, and, a lot of voltage is running through these boats. So if you're really, running that wire, that cable incorrectly, it can really cause some issues with electrolysis. And if that's the case in an aluminum boat, you will experience issues. But even down to the trailers, we kind of learned the hard way years back, carpeted bunks, boat lifts, that might have carpet on them. All that really needs to get to that composite material instead of that carpet, because it dries. It's as simple as that. Carpet's going to hold that moisture in there, and, you're going to have some issues in the long run. I mean, it's something you're really not going to experience maybe for a few years even, but, the carpet on these trailers, even the bunks on these boat lifts, I mean, that's kind of the first concern. And then once you kind of get past that, because pretty much any boat you buy from us right now, any aluminum boat, even like our little 16-foot John boats, like our express line of boats, most of those even have the composite covers over those bunks too. But electrical is the biggest concern that I just kind of leaving a boat in the water, especially if you don't have like a way to disconnect that battery through a battery switch and there's current running through the boat all the time. It's just making sure you got a really good, ground, and making sure if you do your own electronics, if you really kind of take your time, make sure you're not stripping that insulation when you pull it through. Aluminum boat, you could have an edge that's like a razor blade, and that's really the biggest concern. I think the aluminum boat industry as a whole has gotten better and better and better with like quality control. I mean, we've seen a drastic difference, I think, in the last couple of years, even compared to when I first started doing it. I kind of got into it when the boom happened, when the volume went way up. And I think that, a lot of these manufacturers are just now catching up with the people that they're hiring, to make sure all these processes are, I guess, implemented correctly, But yeah, I think it's something that you really, Joe from Illinois, yeah, man, I think you're fine. I just think a week, I would probably somewhere in that time frame, maybe put it back on the trailer, mainly because of barnacles. But I think the same thing would be said on a fiberglass boat. I don't know if I'd want to leave my, I got a Blazer Bay. I don't know if I'd want to leave it tied up to a dock for a week.
Right.
So, past that, the self-bailing thing, you got to be concerned about that. And the only reason there is just because of we get one of these storms to come through, the kind of rainfall we can get. And then number two, depending on kind of electronics and accessories you have on the boat, some of those are from these manufacturers aren't rated for saltwater,
Yep.
And but I mean, like, for example, our line of boats, Express, Excel, all the aluminum lines that we carry, they've really caught up to, people wanting to use these boats in saltwater to the point where, I mean, probably at least half of the boats we sell, they're primarily saltwater boats.
Sounds like Joe should be in good shape then. Maybe pull her out halfway through the week and wash her down real good and make sure your battery's all good and charged. Because in June, for a week, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get at least a couple of afternoon thunderstorms if your boat's not.
You're going to get a few inches of rain in that boat, no doubt about
exactly
that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, John, thanks for coming on and answering the Hey Cap question this week. Folks, if y'all want to get in touch with L&M Marine, just head online to southernfishingboats.com. And John, if they want to call you guys over there at the dealership, what's the best number to reach you?
Best number, man, is going to be 251-937-1380.
All right, John.
Awesome,
well,
John.
Good luck, man. We'll be checking back in with you guys soon, and hope you guys are selling some boats.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
See you, John.
All right, bud.
All right, man. That's things are heating up. I know it's been pretty rough. Couldn't get the best offshore report, but it's a pretty good one. Know where all that sargassum weed is, and it just is what it is right now. It's about the OBBCs this weekend, so hopefully we can get some good reports from that.
Prediction number 2 for the podcast. I do believe you're going to see a bluefin caught in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would say.
Man, I feel like we forgot something this week.
Hey, Cap.
Hey, Cap question. That's right. What we got this week for that, bud?
We didn't forget. We were saving the best for last. Man, this week we're going to do something a little bit different, a little bit out of the ordinary. We got a really cool question from Joe from Illinois. He emailed us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com. Joe had some questions about boat maintenance, boat care. And I thought the guys over at L&M Marine would be the best to answer this question. So today we've got John Page with us. John, welcome to the show. We've got a question for you today from Joe from Illinois. He says, "Hey, Cap, just found your show today. Great stuff. Keep up the good work. I stayed at Dauphin Island a couple years ago and was lucky to rent a house on a canal from an owner who also rented me his boat for the week. It made our trip. This year, we're renting a house on the bay side with the dock, but he was not able to secure a boat rental. He says, I do have a 17-foot aluminum bass boat with a 40-horse Yamaha, and I'm considering bringing it down. What would be your opinion of leaving the boat docked in the water for a week? Do you think there would be any significant damage to any of the components, such as a trolling motor, from being in salt water? Or am I overthinking it?" John, what do you think, man? Y'all see a lot of problems over there at L&M in the service department, and I imagine y'all have learned a lot. What do you think about Joe's issue?
Well, first of all, guys, what's up? I've been a long time listener, really excited to join y'all today, and pretty cool. Podcast, man, I love it. But I think the biggest things and concerns that we get this question probably daily. Leaving the boat in the water, brings up concerns. I think those same concerns I would have for glass boats as far as like barnacle growth and things like that. But more specifically with the aluminum, being a long-time aluminum boat dealer, I think really it kind of starts out with the electrical systems, such as your trolling motor and electronics, and some of those things can be, like, for example, foot-controlled trolling motors. With the foot pedals are kind of exposed. If you flip them over, you kind of see a lot of those components aren't necessarily like waterproof. But more specifically about the boat itself, a lot of the boats that we sell nowadays, all of them are, 50-52 alloy, which is a marine alloy aluminum material. So saltwater, you're fine. It's just the biggest thing. I think what people, our customers included, have to be aware of is that there's only a few of those aluminum bay boats and aluminum even bass boats. Most of those boats aren't self-tailors like these glass boats are. So if you're going to leave it tied up, you really need to have, a good bilge pump in it, and maybe even, some kind of way to have a backup power source or something like that. That way, if your automatic bilge comes on, you need to have it charging. But, the biggest really issue that we run into, kind of circling back to that electrical side of things, is where people start, maybe installing their own kind of LED lights up front. They might be running some electrical wire throughout the boat. And, you got to think about it with aluminum. If you drill any hole or you're trying to run that wire through any of those cap rails, you can strip that insulation back. And of course, if you do that on a glass boat, you might never know, as long as obviously hot and ground aren't touching. But you could cause some electrolysis, and that could be your issue. But, if you've got one of these modern day aluminum boats, they are more than able to handle the saltwater environment as long as you kind of, really take care of them. Our service department deals with it daily using really good, butt connectors, heat shrink butt connectors, tinned wire, and then, making sure, when we do add all these accessories that everybody's putting on these boats. I mean, I know y'all have been on boats with iPilots, and we, certainly I almost feel, like I forgot something if I don't have an iPilot in front of my boat when we go fishing now. It's just such a, really a blessing, how easy that really makes the whole experience, the accessories has gone wild, so people are adding, multiple units, and, a lot of voltage is running through these boats. So if you're really, running that wire, that cable incorrectly, it can really cause some issues with electrolysis. And if that's the case in an aluminum boat, you will experience issues. But even down to the trailers, we kind of learned the hard way years back, carpeted bunks, boat lifts, that might have carpet on them. All that really needs to get to that composite material instead of that carpet, because it dries. It's as simple as that. Carpet's going to hold that moisture in there. And, you're going to have some issues in the long run. I mean, it's something you're really not going to experience maybe for a few years even, but, the carpet on these trailers, even the bunks on these boat lifts, I mean, that's kind of the first concern. And then once you kind of get past that, because pretty much any boat you buy from us right now, any aluminum boat, even like our little 16-foot John boats, like our express line of boats, most of those even have the composite covers over those bunks too. But electrical is the biggest concern that I just kind of leaving a boat in the water, especially if you don't have like a way to disconnect that battery through a battery switch and there's current run through the boat all the time. It's just making sure you got a really good, ground and making sure if you do your own electronics, if you really kind of take your time, make sure you're not stripping that insulation when you pull it through, aluminum boat, you could have an edge that's like a razor blade, and that's really the biggest concern. I think, the aluminum boat industry as a whole has gotten better and better and better with like quality control. I mean, we've seen a drastic difference, I think, in the last couple of years, even compared to when I first started doing it. I kind of got into it when the boom happened, when the volume went way up. And I think that, a lot of these manufacturers are just now catching up with the people that they're hiring, to make sure all these processes are, I guess, implemented correctly, But yeah, I think it's something if you really, Joe from Illinois, yeah, man, I think you're fine. I just think a week, I would probably somewhere in that time frame, maybe put it back on the trailer, mainly because of barnacles. But I think the same thing would be said on a fiberglass boat. I don't know if I'd want to leave I got a Blazer Bay. I don't know if I'd want to leave it tied up to a dock for a week.
Right.
So, past that, the self-bailing thing, you got to be concerned about that. And the only reason there is just because of we get one of these storms to come through, the kind of rainfall we can get. And then number two, depending on kind of electronics and accessories you have on the boat, some of those are from these manufacturers aren't rated for saltwater,
Yep.
And but I mean, like, for example, our line of boats, Express, Excel, all the aluminum lines that we carry, they've really caught up to, people wanting to use these boats in saltwater to the point where, I mean, probably at least half of the boats we sell, they're primarily saltwater boats.
Sounds like Joe should be in good shape then. Maybe pull her out halfway through the week and wash her down real good and make sure your battery's all good and charged. Because in June, for a week, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get at least a couple of afternoon thunderstorms if your boat's not.
You're going to get a few inches of rain in that boat, no doubt about
exactly
that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, John, thanks for coming on and answering the Hey Cap question this week. Folks, if y'all want to get in touch with L&M Marine, just head online to southernfishingboats.com. And John, if they want to call you guys over there at the dealership, what's the best number to reach you?
Best number, man, is going to be 251-937-1380.
All right, John.
Awesome,
well,
John.
Good luck, man. We'll be checking back in with you guys soon, and hope you guys are selling some boats.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
See you, John.
All right, bud.
All right, Butch. The guys over at L&M, they deal with a lot of maintenance issues, and they've got a big service department, a big parts department. So I'm sure they see everything there is to see with regards to folks tearing stuff up. I tell you, one thing we didn't hit on though is, and I'm just trying to think. Joe being from Illinois may not be used to the tides that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wouldn't think they get much tide there in Illinois.
I can't say. But
right,
but
I think that I can say.
The other thing, Joe, you need to think about if you're going to have your boat in the water for a week or even just for overnight is how you tie that boat up. If you get a big swing in the tide and you don't have your boat tied up correctly, that can be a sunk boat right there at your dock. If you let that boat get underneath the dock and then the tide rises when that boat gets underneath the dock, you're gonna have an issue. If you hang an edge of that boat enough for water to get in, that can be. I've seen. I mean, we see it
a lot.
I'd say monthly. I see a boat sunk at the dock, and it's usually from a bilge pump going out. Boat was taking on water, and the bilge pump runs the batteries down, or somebody didn't tie that boat up right. So make sure when you're on a low tide that you've got that boat tied up as tight as you can. You want those lines to be tight. That way, when the tide rises, you've got as much tension as you can. And when you've got that boat on, if you're tying it up on a high tide, you want to make sure you got those lines with a little bit of slack in them. That way, when the tide goes out, same thing. Got a little bit of give, and you don't let that boat. Because I was down in Butch. I was down in Crystal River, Florida, one time, and they get a much bigger tide down there. And I watched a boat sink from a high tide going to a low tide. The guy tied it up super tight. So tight, in fact, that when that tide dropped out, the opposite side of the boat literally just flipped the boat right there in the.
I've seen that before as well.
Right there in the stall. So, John, thanks for the question, and we appreciate it, folks. Y'all send us your haycap questions at Alabama@bestfishingreport.com, and the winner is going to get a Fairhope Rattle popping cork. All right, Butch, what'd you learn this week, man?
That's a great question. I learned a lot this week, actually. A lot of things happening. Summer's heating up. A lot of different species. Bama beach bum's been catching a lot of different stuff. Skipper's been catching a lot of different stuff. I would say, especially if you're not from the area, you're probably going to be catching a lot of stuff that you don't know what it is. And sometimes, even if you are from the area, you may be catching something you don't know what it is. I would keep something handy, like a little, a pocket book or a pocket ranger.
A great resource is Bob Ship's Guide to the Fishes of the Gulf of Mexico.
That's exactly right. Just something saying, the species, size limit, bag limit, etc. That way you don't have to sit there with a fish out of the water for 30 minutes trying to identify it, and then you kill it and all that. I just think that's probably a good thing to have handy, something where, I see stuff on Facebook all the time, fish ID, when he's laying there on the sand.
Mm-hmm.
So
dead fish, that's what that is.
Right, that is a one that's not going to make it. What about you?
Yeah, it was kind of across the board with our tips. I like Skipper's tip because I just think we all get excited.
Yeah.
And there's a big, especially on a big weekend like the open and snapper season, but you get a lot of people in the water, and I'll be the first to admit
Sure.
I've been that guy that is you get a little anxious, a little anxiety when there's a bunch of people launching their boat. There's a bunch of boats in the water around you. Just take your time, slow down,
right.
Have a good time, relax. It's going to be okay. If you're not the first boat out of the pass, it's all right.
Right. What's 5-10 minutes?
That's right.
Nothing.
Just take your time, enjoy it, be nice to everybody else. You see that too. Folks getting all heated up and everything. We're out there to have a good time. So, I think that's a big thing. But on the fishing side, I really like what Bobby said about that shortened 6-inch shorter leader being the difference, because you've seen that. It brings to mind a fall fishing trip in Fowl River where you and I were fishing. It was literally a leader change in.
Made all the difference in the world.
That was the difference. So, and Bobby brought up a good point off the air, is like, if you're in 300 feet of water and you make 100-foot depth change, that's going to be a big difference. Big difference. So if you're in 3 feet of water, 1 foot of depth change is the same exact thing. So kind of think of it that way. And I would just have some different things tied on and be constantly, if you're not catching fish, be constantly changing it up.
Yep. I like it, man. I agree.
All right. That's going to wrap it up this week. As always, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Butch, what you got to say, man?
Keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at CCAAlabama.org.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo DiPaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo DiPaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report was brought to you by me, Joe Baya, and National Land Realty. If I can help you in any way with the purchase or sale of land in Alabama or Florida, whether it's timberland, farmland, recreational land like hunting land, or even agricultural land or ranch land like horse farm, drop me a message at jbaya@nationalland.com. That's JBAYA@nationalland.com. And also A-Team Fishing Adventures. Check them out online at www.ateamfishing.com or contact them at 251-661-7696.